So at the Wisconsin Senate debate, Republican Ron Johnson on Thursday at Marquette University faced repeated laughter and boos from the audience. This was the final debate ahead of the Wisconsin Senate race, where people will be casting a ballot either for Mandela Barnes or the incumbent Ron Johnson, who's been in office for 2 terms there. So some details about this race we'll get into, but first, let's actually watch some highlights from the debate itself.
When I first ran for office, I made 2 promises. I'll always tell you the truth, and I'll never vote with my election or conduct myself with election in mind. I've honored those promises scrupulously.
And while the senator wants to lie and distract and hide from his own record, and while he subscribes to the politics of division, what he doesn't realize that each and every one of us in all 72 counties in this state has so much more in common with each other than we'll ever have with self-serving, out-of-touch politicians.
The FBI set me up with a corrupt briefing and then leaked that to smear me. I am. No, I mean,
I'm sorry.
He is referring to corruption with the FBI, which I've been trying to uncover and expose.
All right. So, do we have time?
The question that has to be answered is, at what point does society have the responsibility to protect life? It's just that simple. And I've actually laid out a sample referendum ballot, and you can also find that at wisfax.com.
Okay, Lieutenant Governor Barnes.
Well, the senator knows very well that the referendum won't happen with the legislature we have now. This is him trying to run away from his dangerous, out of touch, and extreme position. And when you take a position like that, there's so much that you don't always see. Let's talk about Texas as an example. There's a woman who had to be hooked up to a breathing machine because she had complications with her pregnancy and could not get an abortion. A 10-year-old girl in Ohio was raped and had to cross state lines to get an abortion. That's Ron Johnson's America. And it's odd that you can make the argument about inflation and how costs are increasing, but not support raising the minimum wage. And it's also a shame that instead of making sure the wealthy pay their fair share, you'd rather give them tax deductions, because that's not only how we make Social Security solvent, it's how we strengthen Social Security, making sure that the wealthy pay into this vital program. And look, the biggest achievement in business was Ron Johnson saying, "I do." He married into his business. He didn't start that from the ground up.
So after such a heated debate, the moderators asked these 2 candidates, what do you like about each other? Let's watch that.
All right, we are down to one final question here, and both of you have said a lot tonight about each other. Now, when we traveled around the state talking with voters, we heard repeatedly from people tired of divisive politics and attack ads. So our final question here tonight is, both of you have been successful in life. You have 30 seconds here. Mr. Barnes, you go first. What do you find admirable about your opponent?
Well, no, seriously, I do think, the senator has proven to be a family man, and I think that's admirable. That's absolutely to be respected. He speaks about his family. He's done a lot to provide for them. I absolutely respect that.
Mr. Johnson.
I mean, likewise, I appreciate the fact that Lieutenant Governor Barnes had loving parents, a school teacher, father worked 3rd shift, so he had good upbringing. I guess what puzzles me about that is, with that upbringing, why is he turned against America? I mean, why does he find the founding of America awful? It's
somehow
it puzzles me.
We did not.
We said something admirable.
He chose to be petty. He didn't have to, but he did. Let's actually look at this polling. So despite Barnes' performance, polling shows that the lead over him continues to widen. Johnson's lead over Barnes. Back in August, Barnes was ahead. We've seen this polling flip with now Johnson ahead. And what's interesting here, Rick, and I'd love your views on this, is my thinking is Mandela Barnes, during the primary and at the start of his campaign, was vocally advocating for things like universal health care. He was a lot more progressive than he is today. And there's this idea within the Democratic Party that you've got to go to the center to get more votes. But it looks like that's not working out so good for Mandela Barnes, who's backpedaled on those progressive positions.
That is correct. And we have seen it time and time again that when someone goes in that direction and then they execute it, they're actually very popular. incredibly popular because what you're giving the voters is what they asked for, and you're also helping them out instead of being like, oh, here comes another person that I just have to settle for the lesser of two evils. No, if you actually help out people, surprise, you could stay in office longer than one term. You could not get beat out in a midterm election, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not really that surprising to me because it's just something that's been a staple for years and years. Now, what Mandela Barnes was talking about is Ron Johnson and the tax cuts that he gave to the ultra wealthy that not only benefited billionaires from saving a ton of money in taxes. And for anybody that's interested in this story, Google Ron Johnson ProPublica tax cuts, and you will see them lay it out with a trove of receipts on how he helped out the ultra wealthy. And if I may, just gonna name a few. Dick and Liz Uline of packaging giant, you guessed it, Uline, and Diane Hendricks, who is in roofing. They contributed $20 million backing Ron Johnson's 2016 reelection. In 2018 alone, this is all via ProPublica, $215 million in deductions. That was 1 year. So when I'm looking at this, what I see is culture wars, I hate saying choice because it's not anti. I don't want to use their framing. Being anti-women, instilling hatred and fear at every turn, all because you, your son, and your daughter get to purchase planes, which is what the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel wrote about this. So you really have two choices. You could pick the guy who is a Trump staple that allegedly tried to install fake electors, or you could pick Mandela Barnes, who will look out for you way more than Ron Johnson would.
Yeah, Mandela Barnes' performance in this debate really demonstrated he's the stronger candidate. Ron Johnson's performance was awful, but I think about the type of audience that goes in person to this kind of a debate, and I think about the type of person who would stream a debate like this. And it's not the average voter, and the side of Ron Johnson they get, I think you're exactly right, is him talking about culture wars on Fox News, on Newsmax. It's not the side of Ron Johnson where you have to stand up and tell the people what you're gonna do for them. What are your policy plans and what's your record? It's not there for him, but not a lot of people are paying attention to that. And so it's a bad hand for people like Mandela Barnes, but if Mandela Barnes was making the case out in his district, doing good field organizing for things like universal health care, and that would help everyday working people, I think that's our one option to get everyday working Americans over to vote for good candidates. The problem is that the Democratic Party, I'm sure, started pushing Mandela Barnes in the direction of the more mainstream establishment Democrat Party platform. And that's precisely why he is where he is today.
I guess my last question to you is, how do we bring like a candidate like Ron Johnson's record to the forefront where more voters know about this? Because like even like we're in California, we're in different parts of California. I feel like a lot of people in my district don't even know who they're voting for. Like there's one candidate who goes to, let's say a church that's not even a church. And he will like go to them for power and people continue to vote for him and I don't even get it. So like how do you even bring this guy's atrocious track record to the mainstream so voters know about it?
I love this question. So I was a community organizer, right? The type of stuff where you go and talk to people in the community about what bothers them in the community, and you work with them, you get behind them and push to take action on the things that matter to them. That actually, when people come together, you can stand up to power. Then when Bernie Sanders was running, I decided I would organize in an electoral campaign, something I said I would never do. But I learned a lot about how people use data and contact lists to reach voters. We all get those messages. Give Nancy Pelosi $15 to save abortion rights. What if we use those lists to just spread information to constituents of Ron Johnson? Text everybody in his district that we have a cell phone number for and say, hey, he took $20 million from this person and this person. Include the link to the article. We do text blasts when he's voting for tax cuts for the rich and tell people what the impact of the policy will be. Keep people informed about what their representatives are doing. I just don't understand why this hasn't been done before. We have all of the resources necessary to do it, and it potentially could have a huge impact on how people vote and participate in politics.
Good point.
Not that people want more political text messages, but it's worth a try.